Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Buer for Kentucky Derby Prep Recap. In this edition, we're going to take a look back at the Grade 2 $1 million Rebel Stakes at Oaklawn Park. And you're going to want to watch this race maybe a couple of times because there's a lot going on. A wet racetrack, a very fast pace, and a couple of the shorter priced horses got into a little bit of trouble. We break from the gate, and you're going to key on the winner, the number 7, Confidence Game, who was a big price in this race. He gets one of the better trips in the race.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him certainly as the things go on, Dan. He gets an absolute perfect trip in this race, though, at least in my opinion. You see the two horses, though, Dan, that both had designs on the lead. Powerful from the inside, obviously wanted the front. From the outside, Frosted Departure came out running. He could not clear to the lead because Powerful was going. These two horses, Dan, they hooked it up here, and they went a very, very solid pace in this race.
22-3 for the opening quarter. You see at the very tail end of the field, Red Route 1, and that's his running style. He has no speed. He's also 30 lengths off the pace at this point. He actually winds up getting a decent setup from a pace standpoint and a good closer's trip and ride.
Yeah, that's true. Things are working out for him right now. He's got to be loving life sitting back, unless he gets a little bit maybe further away than you want him to be. But they're going in front of him, Dan. The two favorites from the Brad Cox barn, they're in tandem right now, keeping up right up close to this fast pace in this race, Dan. Giant Mischief in the orange and blue. He's going to get first run 3 wide, but the winner's coming right along with him.
That is the 5, Giant Mischief, going to the front. The 1 verifying perhaps a little bit unlucky in behind horses, as well as the number 6, Reincarnate, in those teal silks, trying to get to the outside. He's going to get sort of slammed in between horses. I wasn't sure if he was going to win. He might have been a little bit closer. I wasn't sure if Reincarnate was going to win. He might have been in a little bit closer. Both had some trouble.
Yeah, they did. That's for sure. Reincarnate got in a little bit tight there when Red Route 1 came up to his outside in mid-stretch there. He did wind up finishing pretty well at the end of the race to get to third. So, perhaps he was a little unlucky. I thought Verifying just kind of in a bad spot from start to finish there. Not only right up close to the fast pace in behind, but he couldn't get clear while his stablemate Giant Mischief got clear, and while the winner Confidence Game got clear. They made runs to the outside. Verifying was still in behind horses. He only ran on evenly in the late stages when he finally got room to the inside, but it was way too late then.
I'm willing to give him a bit of a mulligan. Track condition, up close to the fast pace, in behind horses. He may deserve another chance. As for Giant Mischief, he was up close to the fast pace. He did have a clear run. He made first run into the teeth of the pace. He ended up tiring. Does it make you question how far he wants to go?
Yeah, I was worried about that on the way into the race, Dan, and he didn't really do anything to change my mind coming out of the Rebel. That being said, I wouldn't argue too hard with anybody who wants to give him one more chance, because I do think the talent is there. He was right up close to this fast pace throughout the run, and he did take a little bit of a run at it. But man, he got really tired in the stretch of this race.
Reincarnate had shown speed in Southern California. This was his first start, of course, for Tim Yakteen in the hopes of getting Kentucky Derby qualifying points. He was out-sprinted early. He was down inside. I'm sure getting a lot of that wet track kicked in his face. We saw him get to the outside. He was steadied, and he was running on. Your thoughts? Is this trouble going to be overstated when he runs next time out? To me, I think it was a very good learning experience for him.
Yeah, I do too. Mostly because not only did he have, all the other variables, sort of going against him in the wet track for the first time. It's the first time in his life, and this is his 6th career start, that he wasn't, sort of right up close to the pace. He was pretty far back in this race for the first time ever. And I still thought he, actually ran on pretty well at the end of the race. I didn't really feel like, the more I looked at it, I didn't really feel like him getting in tight there in mid-stretch, that it necessarily cost him all that much. But it certainly cost him something, and he did run on late.
A lot of folks are going to be excited about Red Route 1's runner-up performance. They love late closers, and this is the quintessential one-run closer. He falls far behind in all of his races. He comes with an honest run each and every time. We saw him swap leads a couple of times in the stretch when he had to angle inside the drifting pace setter. He ran well, but you can't guarantee this sort of setup each and every time. And if the pace is blazing, can he overcome 20 lengths against top horses?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, in both of his starts so far this year, Dan, he's been in races that have featured fast paces, and he has definitely taken advantage. He's only been second best at the end of both of those races, but they both set up really well for him. And, I would just say, when I watch him run, I mean, in neither the Southwest or in this Rebel, it's not like he was flying at the end of these races. He certainly made, very nice runs into them, but he had the setups as well. But we could also just go back to his final start as a 2-year-old, Dan, the Kentucky Jockey Club, where they kept him closer. He ran pretty well that day within range of the pace, even though he was blocked for much of the stretch that day. So I do think he has some talent. I just wouldn't get too excited about him right now.
I thought Gun Pilot, the 7th place finisher, got a decent experience in this race. He was down inside, in behind horses at the top of the stretch, didn't really get clear until inside the 3/16, didn't fire on after that, but again, a good experience over a wet track. I'm not saying he's a Derby horse by any means, but there's a race for him.
Yeah, probably. I don't really know what to do with him coming out of this, because I think everything that you said about him is correct, Dan. Overall, I thought his trip was pretty good. He was towards the inside. He was able to save ground away from the fast pace. He never really had that much traffic, and he appeared to be going really well around the final turn of the race. And then he did sort of get blocked in the upper stretch. Personally, I would have liked to see him do a little bit of running when he got clear in the race, and that didn't happen. But maybe enough went wrong that you want to give him at least another race or two.
The Frosted Departure and Powerful, the horses that set those brisk fractions, they tired to finish 8th and 9th respectively. I would not hold this race against them, A, because of the fast pace, B, because this distance is likely too long for them. I would consider them if they turn back in reasonable spots.
Yeah, I'll agree with that 100%. I don't really need either one of these two horses if they come back in their next start and they stay on the Derby trail going longer. Certainly the pace worked against both of these horses in this race, but they have a lot to prove as distance horses.
Let's take a closer look at our winner, Confidence Game, who received a career-best 94 Beyer speed figure in winning the Rebel. He had previously run 3rd in the Lecomte against Instant Coffee. It was a race where he was close to a fast pace that day in a race that was won by the favored closer. It appears he's getting good right now for Keith DeZormo, historically a trainer that likes to give his horses several starts before they find their best. Mike, distance isn't going to be a problem for this horse. Just look at his pedigree by Candy Ride out of a half-sister to the great Zenyatta, as well as multiple Grade 1 winner Balance.
Yeah, a lot of pedigree here. And he really hasn't done that much wrong on the racetrack, Dan. You mentioned his Lecomte 2 starts back. He was, fine in that race. I didn't, think it was a super unlucky performance, even though he was close to a good pace that day. I just thought he was 3rd best in that race. And he ran well winning this Rebel. I mean, I won't take anything away from him. It was another step in the right direction. Personally, I thought he got a great trip in this race, but he still ran the race that he ran, and he was clear under the wire.
And before his 3rd place effort in the Lecomte, he defeated Rocket Can, who is also currently on the Triple Crown Trail with a graded stakes win this year. A $25,000 yearling, perhaps a bargain considering this pedigree. It looks like DeZormo's going to point to either the Louisiana Derby or the Arkansas Derby for Confidence Game's next start. Let's take a look at the prices for the Rebel, and there were some big ones. Confidence Game returned $39 to win. Red Route 1 at 9-1, $820 for place. Reincarnate was 3rd, favored, verifying 4th. Confidence Game, beautifully bred, nice trip in the Rebel, seemed to appreciate the wet track, but also could be getting good at just the right time.